Oh, no way, man. Then there's going to be Robert Smith. There's going to be...
Oh, yeah. Well, I forgot about Robert.
I mean, even like... This is the way I described it earlier.
Did you read what Alan wrote? Did you read what Alan wrote about
I read many things.
He looked at Christina and said like no more, or like there's not going to be any more new music, or there's no more new songs or something like that. I was like, oh,
he said, I think this could be the last one. He picked up on it.
Yeah.
I didn't. It's weird, man. I did not pick up.
I didn't, dude. I'm like too busy at work, like doing stuff with it playing in the background to notice.
Well,
like and stuff.
I heard Lazarus, but I did not pay attention to the lyrics of it, and I didn't have the album yet, so I heard it like once, and I never even saw the music video, which would have helped to understand it, and I didn't see that. And then I knew that he had heart attacks and retired. Obviously, that's why we didn't see him for so long. But when he did the second to last album, I thought, okay, he's going to put out a few albums and then retire. You know, he's not going to be touring. We may see him do a one-off performance at the Grammys or something. He's not going to do what we saw, you know, back in the reality tour. But had no idea he was dying. Like, he knew he was dying. Like that. I mean, the one nice thing, it's a bittersweet thing, because it's like he dies with some dignity. He didn't get his cancer shrugged all over the media. But then we have the jolt shock of waking up on a Monday morning and going, oh my God, he's dead? What? Huh? You know, and that's like, there's a last thing. I mean, we already buried Lemmy this year, Scott Weiland last year. It's just like, geez.
I know.
Not to mention my personal life, the people that I know that, I mean, Bill Brown's wife died.
Yeah. What was up with that, man?
I know nothing about it.
Terrible.
I know she got sick.
Did she have cancer or something?
I believe it was cancer. I mean, leukemia or cancer or something. I mean, it's just like, oh God.
Was he still like close to her or whatever?
Oh yeah, they weren't married anymore, but they were very close friends.
Oh,
I think they got.
Dude, I saw him. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I reached out to him and told him I loved him and I was praying for him, and he responded back and said, thank you. And he's like, dark times, and he's like, I hope to see you guys soon. You know, he always comes back to that, you know, like nostalgia of like, oh, these were good dudes in my life. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like a really good close friend of our family's that I've known my entire life, she died of cancer a few weeks ago. Then my mom's neighbor, Val's sister, Mrs. Tursack, lost her mother, her best friend, Tom's brother.
I didn't know that.
And I believe a fourth person. I believe there were four. Because I remember just being like, Lord, give her mercy. Jeez. Because it was like four in a row, like crazy. And it was like big ones. Mother, brother-in-law.
When was this?
And best friend. It just happened. It happened like right before the holidays. Like right before Thanksgiving. Because we invited her to the baby's party, like around Halloween.
Oh yeah.
One or two of them had already happened, and it just kept happening. So I mean, between people I know, thankfully not super directly, like my brothers or sisters or whatever, but like close enough. And then, you know, between that and then you flip over to the media and you get the media side of it, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is the year of death.
It's true.
2016, man. It better lighten up because this is going dark, man. We're like 2 weeks in.
I know.
But Bowie's death is it's sinking in slowly.
Are we? Or when do you want to start recording this?
I'm already recording, but I'll edit out like, you know.
I don't want to put all that stuff we've been talking about.
No, we weren't. No, I just started like 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
That's funny that you thought that.
Well, yeah, I didn't. I'm like, sometimes you guys will talk on these things, and I'm like, well, I don't want all that crap in there.
No, I mean, all right, let's do this like official then. Like, I don't.
That way I know.
Yeah. This isn't an interview. I just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are you going to ask me any questions or anything?
I'm probably going to just let you talk, and then I'm going to pick your brain as you're saying stuff.
Okay.
I mean, all right, ready?
Yeah, get professional on me here, and let's do this.
I'm never professional, as you probably noticed by now.
Well, how long did it take you to use a tuner to figure out you could tune your guitar to B?
Did I figure that out?
You didn't know until
Right.
Tyler showed you.
That was embarrassing. But
Yeah.
I'm glad he showed me. All right. Like, a tuner is not going to work.
And I was like, oh my God, it's a miracle.
I was relieved. I like.
Oh my gosh.
I ate my words. I don't care.
He's like, dude,
was a good thing.
you can just tune to B.
Well, I did. Oh yeah, because we used to tune like just below it or something.
Yeah.
In between, we literally tuned in between.
And I remember you like
notes.
were somebody like, bam, bam, bam. Okay, cool.
I was like, that was way easier. Yeah, just like pick a team.
Oh,
am I going to be in C or B? Just pick a team.
Exactly. That's so funny.
All right, here we go.
All right, official.
So I'm talking to my good friend and musical compadre. Is that a word?
Yes.
Okay, I was making sure.
Yeah.
Rick Wise, Udrick, as some of you may remember.
Yeah.
And of course, Ricky Huntington.
Oh.
Is that also? Did you go by Ricky Huntington when you were in the band?
I think for maybe like a month or something. I think we ditched all the Huntington last names.
Did you make it to the shirt that they made that had all the alumni around in the circle?
Yeah.
I did not.
Which is probably
for my 2 shows where I was Chubby Huntington.
Well, here's the problem. That should. I mean, that's like the best stage name probably ever. So. That should have been. That should
get my own shirt.
Be recorded in the Huntington annuals just on that basis alone.
They should have printed it under the armpit at least.
No, on the stomach, on the waist.
On the waist, yeah, the waistband. Only in medium. So
I don't know if that was a medium, dude. It may have been smaller than that.
It was small. It was small. It was whatever Cliff was wearing.
Yeah, exactly. which was like a junior high girls T-shirt, probably.
Yeah, seriously. Smelled like it. Had some perfume on it.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, we've made a lot of interesting music together in the past.
Would we call it interesting?
I would call it interesting.
Okay.
Right? Tantrum of the Muse. There was some stuff in there that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I would say the people who inspired us and influenced us were big fans of David Bowie.
That's funny that you say it like that, because that's how I was thinking. That's interesting. Keep going. We'll touch
yeah, because if I'm honest, I didn't grow up on Bowie.
Absolutely.
I grew up on singles. I heard on the radio of Bowie, and I always was familiar with who he was.
Right.
And The Labyrinth, of course, I knew what that was.
Right.
She wanted me to watch it.
Right. They'd hide it from me. Yeah.
Bowie was always known as like sort of a freak show that you shouldn't go anywhere near.
He's satanic. He's satanic.
Yeah, exactly. But the people that I got into that opened the door to Bowie for me were guys like Alan McGuire, Jimmy Brown from Deliverance.
And they were all Christians.
And they were Christians, but they were bringing Bowie to me in a way where I could kind of understand it. And then of course, eventually I'd find my way to Bowie.
Right.
So Bowie was an influence inadvertently and directly. And so, I mean, you don't listen to our music that we've made together and say, oh, there's some Bowie stuff right there. But he was definitely someone that I was thinking just sort of as a whole, like, that's kind of like the artist that I look to and go, man, what an awesome, just thinking of all the face changes, all the, going through all the phases of Ziggy and the Thin White Duke and all that, like just all that stuff he did, like, we always tried to do stage antics and stuff. And then I think in the back of our minds, it would be like Peter Gabriel and Bowie were part of that. You know what I mean? So of course we didn't pull it off, but it was there. So
yeah.
So all that to say, we're recording this 2 days in. No, I'm sorry. It's 3 days now that we found out Bowie passed away, and it's kind of the first sting of like musicians that we really looked up to and respected that passed away. We talk about it all the time. All the greats are going to die in our lifetime, But wow, one of them just did. It sucks.
Yeah.
And then you go to listen to the music, and it's just like, this is making me really sad.
Yeah.
I listened to Low this week, and there's some. I've always thought Low is one of my favorite albums, probably on my top 3. But the second half, when it gets into all that ambience and stuff, like, just made me so sad this week.
I know, man.
There's some pieces of music that are like super intense. But anyway, I want to hear from you about this. I mean, what do you think about everything, and what are your thoughts right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely sad. Like I said, when we were talking, before we got started earlier, it was like my wife. She's not really into much of the music that I'm into. That's like kind of middle of the roadish. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that we like together, but most of the stuff is usually extreme in one sense or the other. And she was like, I got up in the morning. It's like 6 o'clock, getting ready to get up to go to work, and she's like,
yeah.
I forget how she said it, like David Bowie, or you like David Bowie, right, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, he died, and I'm like, what? It's like first thing in the morning. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It doesn't even register. I flipped back and forth from Facebook to like Yahoo and Google. Yeah. I kept going back and forth, and I was like, every time I would read it, I was like, no, it's not true.
I know.
And I would go to another place to look for something else.
It was like weird because she's like, yeah, he died of cancer. And I was like, cancer? And I'm like, he just put out a record. I was like, he just
2 days before. I know. It's just marvelous. I don't even understand it.
It's crazy.
So crazy.
And
it's amazing. Go ahead.
Well, that night she said something like, do you have an emotional, are you having like an emotional attachment or like a connection, something along those lines because of his death? And I was like, yeah, like this is like he was like, top 5 easy, like of like my favorite artists. Like I'm always, who was it that said, talking about Lord of the Rings? Oh, Tim Keller. Tim Keller was talking about how, because he was obviously largely influenced from, and for those who don't know Tim Keller is a pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City. And he was talking about literature that influenced him. And he was talking about C.S. Lewis was a big one, and J.R.R. Tolkien. And he was talking about Lord of the Rings and what a profound impact that had on him, and just the way he engages with thoughts of and themes that Tolkien had in that story. And somebody asked him once about how often does he read it, or how often does he go back to it, or whatever. And he said, well, truthfully, he said, I'm always in it. He's like, I'm the themes are there, that so much that he's just always in it. And that's how I feel about Bowie. It's like,
that's a great comparison.
I'm always in it. Like I'm always coming back. Like you and me talk a lot about having seasonal records, certain records we listen to at certain times of the year that just like, man, this is like a summertime record. It's like feel good and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. But with Bowie, he was on all the time. Like I feel like listening to a certain record of his from a certain era at a certain time. Like it was just like constantly coming back and cycling through his discography. He was just constantly a mainstay. Like every couple, like every month I'd be listening to him at some point, probably throughout the month. I'd come back to a certain record.
Wow. Yeah.
Like it was literally pretty much that often, or had gotten to the point of being that often. So yeah, and for me, it's like I'm a drummer, so it's I've always had the complex of wanting, being the drummer, wanting to like write songs and make that step, but only playing the drums, you're kind of like stuck, Mm-hmm. And I was a guy that always kind of maybe wanted to try and be a singer too. But I've always had like a bass voice, or like this big booming voice, as you very well know from 7th mm-hmm. grade onwards. That I'm loud and
you were freakishly low, like when we were all before we all like
when I was a kid. There. Sure, yeah. So like hearing something like that, I was just like, this guy, like, what is his voice? Like, blah blah blah. But it's interesting because for me, just like you said, I discovered him through the back door, right? So
I know exactly where you're going with this.
So yeah, I mean, probably the first exposure to somebody that was influenced from Bowie would probably. You know what? And maybe you can help me here because I'm trying to remember how you introduced me to.
I feel like first would be Scattered Few, but
Well, that's
first, like the words way more specifically. I would say it's Peter Murphy.
Well, hold on. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
You sound like a crazy machine maniac right now.
What do you mean? Like it's buzzing?
No, it sounds like it's like repeating itself with like a robot voice.
Am I really loud in your ears?
Like I can barely make it. Yeah, I can barely make it out. You literally sound like a robot.
Hold on. It'll phase out. It's an internet. Google Hangouts.
Okay. Edit. Click for edit.
Hold on. We'll continue that. I know where you're at.
All right.
Is it clearing up?
It's a little bit better, but it's still there.
Yeah. I don't know how to get rid of this. I'm convinced it's a Google Hangouts thing.
Do you want to hang up and start again? Or are you
no,
recording?
It does it. It does it literally every single episode.
Here you go. You're back.
It does it literally every single episode.
It's weird, dude. It seriously sounded like you were a robot.
Yeah, it's something to do with internet and connecting. But anyway, I would say.
Well, here's the thing. So whatever record came first, either whatever you showed me first as a kid, because I think you showed me both of them. Sin Disease from Scattered Few, or Stay of Execution by Deliverance, because that's really where you hear Jimmy Brown really kind of go. It's like less thrash metal. It's like there's a real artistic bent to that record where you could tell, even with like him covering Horrendous Disc, that sounds more like Bowie than it does Daniel Amos or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like those type of vocals, that kind of artistic approach. Alan Aguirre obviously was, massively
for us in different musical circles than the mainstream. Absolutely on the top of the list was Alan Aguirre.
Right. And then we had a mutual friend that at a time probably probably around 90, probably 98, I think.
That sounds right.
Was dating some goth girl or whatever. Did date a goth girl, and he had a bunch of like Bauhaus CDs, which I never heard before. Listen to Bauhaus. I'm like, this guy sounds just like Alan Aguirre. I'm like, what the heck is this? So then I'm exploring that, discover Peter Murphy, obviously hugely influenced from David Bowie. Bauhaus covers Ziggy Stardust, Then I'm like, who first introduced me to the first Bowie record was Brian Alessi, which was probably 99, I think, at that point. And he pulled out Ziggy Stardust. He had it somewhere. We were driving to some crappy show. Somewhere between the Delaware, Philadelphia area around there, and he was playing it, and I'm like, this is like blowing my mind. He's like, oh yeah, and he's talking about how futuristic David Bowie was, and I'm like, this is like where everybody has their roots, is right here. Like everybody that I've been discovering in the past few years is all linked to this record. This is like crazy. And then after that, it's just you just steamroll through the catalog. I mean, then you're discovering everything, and
it's on. And just at that point, what you just said, I'm going to harken back to what you said about what, Faith is kind of like, is this affecting you emotionally or whatever? I don't think, and this isn't a diss to her at all. This is just, I don't think people realize how deeply ingrained he is to so much other stuff. Even fashion.
Everything. Absolutely, everything.
And some of the films he worked on, were kind of even revolution, kind of changed. They were the man who sold the man. How do you say that? What's the name of that movie? The man who sold. No,
Man Who Fell to Earth.
Thank you. I'm getting the song and the movie mixed up. Yeah, The Man Who Fell to Earth is like really experimental filmmaking for its time, and the dude was just like, I would say, especially with the music, like. People just have no idea. Like they're listening to stuff that's like 3 tiers down into Bowie land, and they don't even realize it. And it's kind of like when you hear young kids saying like, "Who's this old guy?" when they're talking about when Paul McCartney's on stage at the Grammys, like introducing like Kanye West or something. People are like, "Who's this old guy?" Yeah. And it's like, you have no clue how deep this goes and what an amazing time this era was, and how it just literally wrote the book and like, you know what I mean. So it's just like, as we stop and think about it, we're just kind of like, yeah, another death, another celebrity. But no, like if you really stop and think about it, it's like, and I think that's why it's hitting me slowly as the week goes on. It's like, and as I listen to his music, I'm just like reminded more and more. Like I put Ziggy Stardust on the other day, that album, and I'm just like,
It's phenomenal.
I completely just, you know, you just get so used to it and so kind of burned on it from it just being, yeah, I've heard Starman a million times. Okay, I get it. It's such a great song. Yeah. Then you put the album back on and you're just like, oh my gosh, for the time this came out is so crazy.
Well, it's crazy because I grew up, we both grew up listening to pretty much primarily Christian music, which had its heyday, in the 70s and 80s, despite what anybody says. I mean, that was the heyday, and there was actually extremely quality music, amazing artistically quality music coming from the Christian industry at that point.
Right.
And, growing up listening to the very early Amy Grant stuff and Keith Green and Michael Card and all that kind of stuff was all like very valid and great songs. And obviously it was Nashville was the hub. So it was like good quality music. Despite what people said, I think it stood toe to toe with its secular counterparts, like Keith Green was just as good as Elton John and,
Larry
all that
Norman.
kind of stuff.
I mean, Larry
Absolutely.
Norman, he's the godfather of Christian rock. And he was like touring with the Doors and Janis Joplin and stuff.
Absolutely. But there was something. So I guess, I think Ziggy Stardust came out in 72. And I'm sure people consider that to be the real turning point for him, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But for me, is that record just sounded weird. Like when you listen to that record, the production, and I know that I know that that era's production well because I grew up listening to all that music, and I still do listen to all that 70s music. Mm-hmm. And there is something about those songs, about the tones of things, about how it sounds that just makes it stand out from everything. It's even different from Aladdin Sane, which came right after that, and it's completely different from Hunky Dory.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very.
It's like so. There's so much. Man. There's so many there's so many twists and turns with his discography that it's like it. You could talk about it for hours.
Oh yeah.
You just go. And then he did this thing in the '90s with 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. It's just like what? Like this guy's still doing this, and then just everything his entire discography is there's no throwaway. There's nothing. I mean, there may be an album or two where you're like, yeah, that one didn't do it for me as much. But for a man who's reinvented himself so much, I mean, it's so far deep. It's so hard to even wrap your head around it.
And he was willing to just do it. Like he was willing to go into the crazy artistic depths. He embraced the mainstream in a big way, and then embraced the change that happened in the 90s, and then reinvented himself in his elder years with Heathen. In reality, it's just like it's really, and even the 90s is totally crazy because he went and got Black Tie White Noise, which I think is a completely overlooked record. I think that record is phenomenal.
It really is
phenomenal, and I actually just started to really appreciate that record in the past couple of years. It went back to Nile Rodgers, who did Let's Dance, with him, and gave him that amazing production for that record, which I think is also phenomenal. So
the guitar work on that too.
Yeah, so compare that to the one that came right after that, the Outside. It's like truly night and day, and that just kind of shows how the change that he can do. Like
it's like he was like, step out of the way, guys. I see you're doing this industrial thing. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
let me continue to pave this way for you.
I mean, it's
Jimmy Brown. I don't know if you listened to that episode where we talked about this with Jimmy, but he had said something really interesting about. He said when he came out and did that with 9 Inch Nails, it was kind of his way of saying like, like you guys were influenced by Low and all the like invention of the keyboards, which is what kind of bridged that thing, Well,
that's the other thing. I mean,
now you're doing 9 Inch Nails, and I'm going to come out and recreate another like level to this of, you know what I mean? Like almost like he's they were kind of influenced from what he had done, and then he comes back out and still kind of comes around and does something completely unique with that. It's just weird how that worked.
Well, yeah, it's he's just all over the place, man.
I mean, think about that. He puts an album out called Low. That album's sound is like the birth of what would become industrial or electronic stuff.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Brian Eno invented that genre of music, and they literally say, I saw some interview with him. He's done tons of interviews about that era.
Where they threw away the keyboard.
Well, they were just they were literally just playing, just trying to figure it out, without having to have any rules. They
were that primitive at the time.
Yeah.
And so he puts a record like Low out, which is ridiculous because half of it's super poppy and happy and upbeat and weird, and then the other half is gloomy, dark, ambience.
Which is great. The way they arranged that record is great.
I know, it's amazing. But what's so crazy about it is he puts a record like that out. Bands like Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, all those kind of groups take influence from that. I think Robert Smith even credited Low as one of his favorites, and is why you get Cure records like Kiss Me, where there's gloom and pop all thrown together.
Oh yeah.
I think that was inadvertent. That was a direct influence. And then he comes out and does a record like Outside.
I know.
How does you'd think that a band would, the next generation just sort of takes over, and then the next generation comes behind them. Not with Bowie. He just came out and he just kept in front of everybody. That's what's so nuts about that.
I know. One time, I think I was on Facebook one time, and I decided I think I was on a Bowie kick again, and I was like, I'm gonna put out was it his birthday maybe or something? I was like, I'm gonna do all week. I'll post a song on Facebook and talk a little bit about it, why it's awesome. And one of the things is on that the Black Tie White Noise record, he does that Night Flight song, which is one of the better songs on there.
Yeah.
Which is a song that was written by Scott Walker. So here's Bowie covering a Scott Walker song in this pop R&B hip hoppy kind of a thing that they had going on that record, and it just goes to show you that's just him, that's the world he operates in. It's Bowie doing a song by Scott Walker that's done in this pristine pop.
Yeah.
It's just that's totally, people don't think about that. That just kind of goes to show
And what era was Scott Walker in at this point? Was he doing the weird tilt type stuff yet?
I don't even know. I think they originally published it under a different name, I guess. He actually didn't call himself Scott Walker.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird thing.
I didn't realize that was a cover or a song written by him.
Yeah,
cool.
It was a Scott Walker song that he covers and then filters through, the style that he was doing on that record. It's just very, it's that kind of stuff. Who thinks of that? Nobody does that kind of stuff today. It's just it's crazy.
And what did you think of the Tin Man stuff he did? I think it's interesting that he started a band so late in his career.
Well, again, there he goes. He doesn't care. Was in this super mainstream '80s thing, and then decides to do that. Which was not actually a Bowie record technically, I guess, right? It's a band. It's let me get some guys together and rock out. I wasn't a fan of it. I actually didn't really like it. I actually think he probably could have done it. I think he could have done it better. I like the idea, and I think I just think he could have done it better. Maybe if he would have given it more time. I don't really know what the scenario was around it. But I think if he would have got a band together and maybe just worked on the songs more and blah blah blah, I think it totally probably could have been awesome. But it falls flat for me, as it does for most people. Most people don't like it, but I definitely don't hold it against him. I mean, the guy was I don't know how old he was at that point, and he was I'm going to start a rock band because there's all these rock bands going on, so let's try a hand at it. It's just
What I love most about him and his approach to everything he did was just his confidence to just be Ziggy Stardust is getting so huge. I'm throwing that out now. I'm doing this thing now. He switches to some other thing. And it's just he always does that. And it's I would be afraid. I would be okay, I just worked my butt off. Now I got a career and I got a few albums out on a major label, and I'm getting a lot of hits.
Yeah.
I don't want to screw this up. I'm going to keep doing I'm not going to try to fix what's not broken. He would literally just constantly fix what was not broken. And it's somehow worked. And I guess because just how talented he was, he could pull it off. I mean, he was well known before he even did Ziggy, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And he did Ziggy, and it just was like a freak show. Everyone was like freaking out. They couldn't stand it. They couldn't believe it, how amazing it was. And then, like, what was that? Like, I can't remember the exact story, but it's like how he transitioned out of that was kind of like abruptly on stage or something, or he just kind of said,
"This is the last.
This is the last. I'm done with it." Yeah, and it's like,
but everybody, I think everybody thought he meant himself. Like he was, I guess he was talking about the persona, but it shocked everybody's system because it made it sound like he was pretty much done. Like, I'm done my career. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, I would be terrified. I'd be like, let me explain this very carefully because I don't want to lose my career. He was just like, I don't care. The man just did what he wanted to do.
The raw power of the true artist, dude. I mean,
I know.
Like, but the interesting thing is like, I don't know. Again, I don't know the time frame. I think this was around that point I think it was around Ziggy and Aladdin Sane, where he was like literally broke. So I guess like his manager, or whatever, he had like this big thing with his manager at that point in time. Was like stealing money or whatever, and then also like
all the drugs he was taking.
Well, that too. I think that started to get expensive, and I think they were getting like what are they called, advances from the record label, and like he was on tour in America, which it wasn't like he wasn't huge at that point, so the shows weren't like. It wasn't like people losing their minds or anything. It was like this huge thing. So he was kind of like going broke. So they were keeping up this image of like rock and rollness, but he really didn't have like that much money, and it wasn't until I think Young Americans or something where he finally started to like actually make some money, which was, quite a few years there, before he was able to kind of get back on his feet.
Yep.
He's just man. He just has a crazy story. It's like
it really is.
You do all
Especially
this,
when you think of how far down his music would go, like how many years in he would do it.
Oh yeah, like you got to think about him becoming like huge. So he was like popular, obviously, throughout the 70s, and then he tries to shake the drugs, goes to Berlin. Does the Berlin trilogy, which influences everything, then comes back and like tries to, Scary Monsters is like the first attempt at like at that, Ashes to Ashes is obviously big, and then Let's Dance, like, obviously explodes, and makes him like a household name at that point, and
and all before the 90s even happened.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Let's Dance came out in 83. Like, that's like
it's so early.
It's so crazy. Early still, right? It's like,
I know.
It's not even like fully formed 80s. When people think of the 80s, it actually still wasn't quite that. Like 83 was when it really, and 84 was really when it became like the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, like 80, 81, 82, those were all like residue of the 70s, really, right? Like Journey and all that kind of stuff was still like happening.
It's so weird. I remember when going back to the 90s thing again, I remember when they announced Nine Inch Nails and Bowie were going to tour. And I remember thinking, Bowie's like a classic rock guy. Like, that's...
I kind of remember that too. I kind of remember being like, yeah, absolutely.
Because at the same time, Nine Inch Nails is just building up. I mean, the Downward Spiral was like a landmark album. We were, as young 90s kids into weird alternative music at this point, the last thing on our radar is classic rock. So then, or
that's why
what we think is classic rock. So all of a sudden, Bowie comes out with Outside, and I loved that record as soon as I heard it. I remember just being like, "Oh my gosh, this is so weird!" And the weirdness factor and the industrial factor got me hooked.
Yeah.
That one. And
well, I don't even think I listened to that until well afterwards. Like, I remember like hanging out and hearing about that on MTV or whatever, and being like, that you're right. That's that old like classic rock guy. That's a weird match. And I don't even think I realized that he put out an industrial record. I don't think like none of that really clicked until I started discovering the discography and going through it. I'm like, oh yeah, this was that time that he went on tour with Nine Inch Nails. I'm like, oh, this is like actually like an industrial record. Like, what the heck? Like,
And they did that "I'm Afraid of Americans" single.
Yeah.
It's like all coming back now. I remember, and of course, this is the time we're discovering David Lynch, and we're starting to watch some of his weird movies. We got into Lost Highway. I mean, I don't remember if you were as big of a fan, but I was super into that movie when it came out. And of course,
I remember you liking it. Yeah.
The music from the soundtrack was from Bowie's Outside record, but it was different mixes, and it made it some of the stuff creepier. Like when he's doing that. What's that song? Deranged. I'm deranged. And it's got that boom, 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 boom. I remember the opening of Lost Highway having that, and you just see the scene of the street at night with that light shining on it. It's going real fast, and that song's playing. It just makes you feel weird. And it's, of course, that's how Lynch was too. But like, his songs started to sneak into the things I was getting into a lot at that point. And it was a really weird. He did that album Earthling, which I thought was. This is what I wanted to tell you. I don't even know if you know this, but again, we're getting into all this alternative music, and the band Helmet was a big influence. We were really into Helmet.
You're saying an influence on us. You're saying
on us, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Meantime comes out, and we're like, oh man,
sure.
What is this crazy aggressive music?
Yeah.
Freaking Bowie hires Paige Hamilton, the guitarist and singer of Helmet, to be his stage guitarist during this time.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
He was David Bowie's touring guitarist for, I think, Earthling and the album After Hours.
Wow.
Around that kind of like right before he would go into the Heathen period.
So playing live on tour, it was Paige Hamilton.
Because Bowie's whole thing then was he was deconstructing his music and making it sound like more modern and more 90s, and kind of he was still coming off of the whole Outside era type thing. So his songs had
I like
modern.
There's
some good stuff on Earthling. Yeah,
drum and bass record.
Mm-hmm. And he's going through his electronic, kind of his, more of the electronics modern sort of thing. And so Paige kind of fit into that, because what people don't realize about Paige Hamilton is he's actually an amazing trained jazz guitarist.
Yeah.
And has like a whole other world of music he does that's completely nothing like Helmet. And so he's like this really good guitarist who happens to sort of have his foot in the, up and coming of the 90s. And so Bowie always recognizes the talents that are coming for each decade. So he grabs freaking Paige from Helmet. It's just like, who would have thought, you know what I mean? That kind of thing would happen. But that was
it's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. It only lasted a couple albums, but I mean, it was cool to see. You could watch YouTube footage of him up there jamming out with Bowie, and it's like weird to see him. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting coming into the more modern era. Now we're kind of moving in like a timeline. I was listening to that podcast. I actually discovered it because Travis recommended that one about the drummers. I'd Hit That or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's a good.
That's a great podcast, and I was, I pick and choose because some people I've never heard of or don't really care or whatever. So I try to find the guys that I would dig. And one of my favorite drummers, who was a big influence on me, back around the early 2000s, is Matt Chamberlain. And Matt Chamberlain did some time in Pearl Jam. He did. I think he still drums for Tori Amos, and he did that for several records. I think he did. I think maybe started with Choir Girl. Actually, did he start for her? Something like that. So he had been around. He'd been around with her for a while, and then he played on Heathen, which the drums on Heathen are awesome.
Completely forgot he was on that album.
And so he was talking about that experience. So if anybody's interested, if people want to go download that, it's very cool, because it's like he was talking about how he got some of his gigs, which are pretty. He's played for some pretty amazing artists and on some pretty awesome records. And he was talking about how it was just very like, he's never really had to try, which is just interesting. He's like, these people would just call me, like I make these connections. They'd be like, oh yeah, you should get Matt for this and blah, blah, blah. Like, next thing I know, I'm in some house on some mountaintop, literally. And David Bowie's like just sitting in the studio cross-legged, like, like Indian, like sitting like Indian style and like talking these crazy stories. And I'm just like sitting there like, what is happening? I'm like, that's just gotta be so crazy.
That's so rad. What do you think of Heathen aside from the drums?
I love that record. I love that record. I was on tour with the Huntingtons when that came out, and that was one of the ones that got played a lot. And
By you or by the band? Everybody else?
by me. They all hated the stuff I played.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wore that record out. I love that record so much. I love the atmosphere that record has. Which a lot of that, to be honest, when you're a drummer, you realize this. A lot of that has to do with what Matt does, like his decisions on, particularly some of the songs towards the tail end of the record, like 515, The Angels Have Gone. What's the other one that's towards the end there? Everyone Says Hi.
I like that.
Slip Away. That song's awesome. If you listen to like the interplay that he's doing there with the other instruments, I mean that's again, those records I love because they have. It's not Bowie being weird. It's not him trying to do anything. It's literally just like this thing of like just lowering any facades, being like, this is me at my most natural, and he just got really amazing players. So it's like this pop music that's just like so well played, which is essentially my favorite music. Like I love a good song. If the song's not there, I don't really care how good you are. So when you can write a good song and then play it with these people that are playing things that normal Joe Schmoes could never play, you actually have these guys in the studio that are playing these amazing things that you don't really notice within this pop song. That's just top notch. I mean, that's just like me. Which essentially, if you go back, I mean, that's like Let's Dance too, right? It was like, oh, David Bowie did his pop record. If you listen to that record is phenomenally artistic as a pop record. I mean, like, which a lot of people try to do. Like people nowadays, it's like, Lady Gaga tries to be this artist, but essentially she's just pop music, But back then it was all these guys playing guitars and playing bass and drums and background vocals. It was less computerized, and so Heathen has that feel of like just guys in the room playing. There's keyboards and stuff going on, but it's guitars, drums, and it's just it's got a real natural, organic feel. I love it. I love that record.
I also really loved Heathen when it came out.
I remember being blown away by his voice. Because that was like the comeback record. He's like an old man now, technically, right? And I'm like, holy smokes, his voice is amazing.
And I remember kind of being like, because he had done so much in the '90s period that it was kind of like, I wasn't quite as connected to the Hours record, and even I liked some of the Earthling stuff, but even that, like, I don't know, I was really just.
There was a bit of a dip there. Yeah, Hours. I don't really. I listen to it every once in a while, but I don't really revisit it that much.
I just remember the production being kind of weird for me, and the vocals. His voice seemed a little like, I almost feel like it was like his vocals were a comeback on Heathen.
And that could be. I mean, maybe that's why it just comes off so strong. Like I think. Yeah.
It was just.
I remember being surprised by it. I just remember being like, man, I can't believe how good he sounds like.
And people probably don't notice it now as much when they like just sit there and flip through iTunes to album, like how drastic of a change it was. But I remember the sticker on the outside of the Heathen album said, "Circa 1970," blah 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 blah, because it was.
I remember that too. Yeah,
there was a point to be made in the advertising that this is a rock record. Like, this is like getting away from industrial music or electronic music. And it really was a bit of a throwback. But yet, it was a throwback album, but it was still very much unique to his thing. There was still a lot of odd things about it that, it wasn't like he was like, I'm kind of just, I should just go back to, Major Tom. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's still a lot of fresh ideas for sure. Just solid songs. I love Slow Burn. I know it was a single, but it was such a good song.
Oh yeah, and an obvious single. That's why, because it's that good. It's just like, this needs to be the first thing to get out there.
Yeah, and I thought Reality, the next one he did, was freaking solid from beginning to end. There's not a bad song on it.
It's funny for some reason, and I don't know why, because I don't remember. But when that came out, I did not like it. I think probably because I loved Heathen so much that I remember the first couple songs off there, I was like, I don't like this at all. Like, I don't know what the heck happened between this and Heathen. And then I would go back and listen to it. And now it's like probably one of my favorite David Bowie records.
It's so good, man.
It's really good. And the drummer on that, I forget his name, but he is awesome. And I got to see that tour, and he was the drummer. And it was that was interesting because that was literally like a 1-2 punch. So you had Heathen, and you're like blown away, and then he follows it up with Reality, and I was like, man, this guy's on fire right now.
I know. It was just, and that was like, while I'm getting into all that stuff, and for that decade, really, like the 90s into 2003, I was going back to the old stuff, because that's when I officially was like, all right, I need to pay attention to this. And that's when we absorbed all of it. And so we're getting all of it thrown on us in a short period of time. So, and that could explain some of why the burnout kind of came there at the end of the 90s, but definitely I feel like he came back strong with those records. And I think we saw the last tour. We saw the very last David Bowie tour.
Last David Bowie tour. I know. I actually didn't think about that. Yeah, that was his last because he did tour for the next day. That was it, the Reality tour. Yeah,
because I guess his heart attacks problems started happening on that tour.
Yeah.
Somewhere later on, not long after we saw him. And what's so crazy is when we went to see him, I went to a different show than you did, but when I went to see him, I was thinking, this is the time. Let's go see David Bowie. He's finally doing a tour for this stuff that I'm loving and listening to.
Yeah, at that point, it was probably for about 4 years, maybe, probably by that point, that he, from the beginning of Heathen to the end of Reality when they were actually touring, it had been out already for a while. So.
Yeah. It was like, finally, I'm going to put my money down and go see this dude in a concert. And had a great night. I remember they opened with Rebel Rebel, and he played it. He played it the way he played it originally. It was classic sounding. And I remember thinking, okay, he's finally playing all of his old stuff the way that they were played, the way that he should play them. And it was kind of like a compilation best of concert of like some of the best stuff he's ever done. And I remember they ended with what song was it? It was either I think it was Ziggy. He played something from the Ziggy Stardust album. I think it was Ziggy Stardust. And I remember people just freaking out because it was like, holy crap, you're playing this era too. Like, and yeah, we went home and I just thought, I'll see him next year. You know what I mean?
I know.
And then no tours came, and yeah. And who would have thought? Who would have thought that far down the road we'd get a record again from him? Just completely.
And one thing that was interesting to see about that crowd, I mean, if you stop and think about it, you might say, okay, well, that's kind of obvious. But one thing that was just really interesting being at the concert was, and you went to the Philadelphia show, I went to the Hershey Arena show. Mm-hmm. And it was so eclectic. It was literally people of all ages and people that looked like bikers, people that looked like just Joe Schmo preppy guy, kids that looked like a bunch of punk rock kids or whatever. Like just all different types of people were there. So it's just really, it was interesting for me to see like, wow, this dude has literally, affected all different types of people. Again, like he essentially affected everything in some way. Like it's like that fast, You can't really say that about other legendary people. Like if you go to a Rolling Stone show, Paul McCartney, you're probably going to get a predominantly older crowd. Maybe there'll be some younger people there. It probably won't look as diverse as that, but he had a way, man. He crossed it all. And like somehow the same people that liked Rebel Rebel, liked Nuclear Star, it's like, it's just, it's interesting, man,
Yeah. And I remember the sound was just so good. And there was, he would slip into the Outside era stuff, and the band would literally just switch gears. They'd start playing like industrial stuff, and he did Halo Space Boy, and then they'd switch back. They'd do Out of Pressure, and that amazing girl bassist. I forget her name, but the girl with the shaved head. Oh my gosh,
he's worked with
and
her
she
for a
pulled
long
off
time.
she did the Freddie Mercury notes on that. Oh,
Oh, Under Pressure. Yeah.
oh my
Yeah, it
gosh,
was
I
good.
have the reality tour on DVD. They released it professionally DVD.
Yeah, I
And,
remember. I think I
I'm
have
glad
that
I bought
too.
that.
Actually, I think I
Yeah.
think I got that too.
That's just such a
Well, it's interesting. It's I think that's probably his best band since the band that he had for stage, that era where he was like transitioning from like old 70s to new 70s, like the Berlin era and like Ziggy, like the band that he had there at that point. If you listen to that stage record, that band is tight. It's like these crazy monster jazz people or something. I don't know, but the band is extraordinary. And I don't think he ever had like a band that was that good, that really just gelled like that, until that last lineup that he had, I thought was just top notch.
Yeah, agreed.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
And this might be difficult. What would you say is probably your favorite record from him, or maybe at least more predominant, the one maybe you go to the most? I don't know how you would frame that, but
the one that I go to most lately
exactly, Steven.
because that's how this works. You can't.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I can give you maybe a favorite per decade, but I can't really pull a favorite from all of what he did. But I'll say the ones that I tend to have the most fun with kind of can either be a deep sit down and pay attention, or just they throw it on while you're doing other stuff. Album is Scary Monsters. It's not necessarily the greatest work he's ever done, but it's amazing. I love that album. I love the songs that people don't think about, like Up the Hill Backwards. I love
that stuff is weird on that record, man.
Scream Like a Baby, which we just played that song on the intro of one of the Jimmy episodes.
Well, the guitar on that record is like the way the production is crazy. It's like a razor blade, that guitar. It's nuts.
I love it. I love it. I love the 80s stuff. I love all that. I even like the sort of misses, like Never Let Me Down. I like that he did a little reggae song on that album. It's all good to me. It's all feel good. It's like candy, man. You know what I mean? Like, and if I'm to sit and go, what's the most progressive? What's the one that's like on the list of like the pretentious, like let's put a record next to King Crimson. What's the David Bowie King Crimson record? I would say like something like Low. You know what I mean? Or, of course Ziggy, because not necessarily for the music, but sort of what he was doing. I think of bands like Genesis and Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel kind of took that, and then later Maynard sort of started doing stuff like that, and it all kind of came from that progressive presentation of like him as an art, like a visual artist. And
Diamond
so there's
Dogs
all
is
that.
pretty progressive too.
Diamond Dogs, totally.
That record is weird, man.
It really is. Yeah, I forget about how weird those records are. Diamond Dogs and
Diamond Dogs is weird, man. Aladdin Sane with like
Aladdin Sane, I would put in the more
super long,
like
the super long songs. It's like
the piano is brutal on that. Like that's
I know.
That's one of those records where I'm like, I have to pick a certain time to listen to it. It's not music you put on in the background for me, because it's too because the only way to listen to it and go, okay, Aladdin Sane is like a work of art, is to stop and pay attention to what they're doing. Because if you listen to that piano like without paying attention, it can just be like grating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like so unnerving.
Well, drugs will do that to you.
Yeah, but dude, how about that album cover though?
Oh
gosh, how many times in the last 4 days have you seen that lightning bolt?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's probably one of the most iconic record covers like that.
Every time I start to think of an album, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my word, and here I just did it again. The Man Who Sold the World, man, like he wrote a song on that Nirvana made famous.
Which is interesting because again, Yeah, again, we grew up in that era, the Nirvana era, so it was like, you hear him even say that's a David Bowie cover, but I still didn't. It still was not like I'm gonna go buy David Bowie. Like it still didn't click until afterward, like later on towards the end of that era. So it's very interesting.
There's a song on that album called Savior Machine, and do you know where the band Savior Machine got that? You know,
I wonder.
And Eric Clayton from Savior Machine was doing a lot of that progressive costuming and stuff. I mean, gosh, the dude's just Bowie. Just like the more I think about his albums, each album, and then what songs are on it, I'm like, geez, this won't stop.
Yeah.
It's too big. It's too big, and the loss. I feel like the loss is so big. I heard more about Lemmy dying than I did about David Bowie, and I think it's because. I mean, I'm hearing about it all the time, but my thing is like I thought like David Bowie would be like a bigger like shake to the system, and I mean like media wise and all. But honestly, I feel like people just don't know where to start. Honestly, it just seems like people are like.
A part of it, I think, is if you have to like in the way that news works now. It's like already kind of over with. It's only like the fans, like from like people that I know on Facebook, are still posting things here and there. But like, I mean, that first day, you couldn't go to a news website. I mean, even freaking Fox News had the fact that David Bowie died. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, it was
like
posted,
it was all over the place. Yeah,
but it was like there was a sort of a calmness about it almost, because it seemed like everyone was sort of taken back by it. Like they didn't even know where to start. It's like I don't hear a lot of other celebrities talking about it. Like maybe they're out there and I just haven't noticed. Like I would think like Robert Smith would have a statement, or David Gilmour would release a statement.
They probably did, but you're not on Twitter.
Oh, I am on Twitter. I just don't pay attention to it every single.
No, I'm not.
I'm trying to transition.
Apparently, a lot of people did stuff that way.
You know what's crazy? The heavy metal Bandcamp gift club, which was started by a few of the people that we're friends with through our podcast, kind of almost through our podcast. They are trending so big right now. I think they're one trend above David Bowie.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like a couple of the guys that we communicate, mostly Travis communicates through Twitter and because of our podcast. They started. One of the guys decided he was going to start this thing. Well, what happened was he sent. He got on some people's wish list on Bandcamp, and he just randomly just bought them an album. Strangers just bought them an album and sent it to them, and then it's kind of like the pay it forward concept. But then it picked up, and the person that he sent it to jokingly did a hashtag metal Bandcamp gift club, like just as a joke, and sent it out and said, do this. Here, I'm going to do it for some albums for people. And eventually within, he went to bed that night. He woke up the next day and there were literally thousands of people had just spread this thing like a giant. It became literally an internet sensation through Bandcamp and Twitter. It was a Twitter Bandcamp thing. And it made such a dent that Bandcamp called, as the story goes, called Travis.
Are you serious?
They got a hold of Travis because Travis got right in the middle of it at the right time and bought the domain. He bought the website domain, Heavy Metal Bandcamp Gift Club or whatever.
You've got to be kidding me.
Got the website set up, and Bandcamp came in and was like, "We love what you're doing. Like, we want to help you." And it just turned into this huge thing. And it literally is like, if you go to the Twitter trends right now, you get like hashtag Heavy Metal Bandcamp Gift Club, hashtag David Bowie, like underneath it. It's that big of a thing right now. And our last episode is the story of that, because we kind of like Travis kind of jumped in right at the right time and kind of like exposed it. It was crazy. But anyway, all that's a sidebar, a huge sidebar. But my point is, like, stuff that our podcast is involved in right now was in the high range of Twitter feeds, and which is weird to me because I'm thinking like Bowie's up there. You know, like
Well,
like
sure.
Bowie's the one you think should be like going madness, but it just seems like there's like this stillness in the air. Like people just don't even know where to start. You know, so
Yeah.
you know,
It's well, he was a musician, a actor, painter. Uh, it's a fashion icon. It's just like he was a true artist. So I guess it really depends on what you're getting, why you're on Twitter. He was getting
yeah.
tweeted out because he's a legend, and Metal Bandcamp was getting tweeted out because it's a novel idea. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Real quick before we end this conversation, I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Bowie puts out the next day and kind of just announces it as it's coming out in a strange David Bowie way, and we're all like, "Holy crap! A new David Bowie album! It's 2014, and there's a new David Bowie album, or whatever it came out." What'd you think of that record? And I have to know what you think of the new one. Because the new one's got a strange twist to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked the next day.
Yeah.
I didn't like the production as much as the previous records. I think I liked the majority of it. I think it trails off a little towards the end for me, but the majority of it I liked. I think it's solid. It's fun to listen to. I actually think that "Where Are We Now" is probably one of his best songs. To be honest with you, I think that song is beautiful. It's just like this, like a sad old man song. Like the guitar is beautiful. The drum, I just love the whole thing. It's just gorgeous. But yeah, I mean, as far as in comparison to maybe some of the ones that came before, I think they were a little more solid, a little more, maybe just a little bit more focused. Like I said, it trails off for me a little towards the end. But overall, to get just a surprise record from David Bowie in the year 2015 or whenever it was, 14, 13, that was a gift in and of itself. That was awesome.
Yeah. And it felt like that one and Black Star kind of were like really close together for some weird reason. Like it feels like the time that passed between the two was like less than a year or something, even though it wasn't. But when the next day came out, I think it was like kind of like whiplash, and it between that and the fact that I guess just the time, it came out in 2014. Like what was I listening to at the time? It was kind of hard to like kind of wrap my mind around it, and kind of took me a few listens till I really started to appreciate it. But when he put out Black Star, the 10-minute video single, like,
well, yeah, that when I saw that, I was like, he's back.
I know,
like old school, like art rock Bowie is back. Like I loved the modern rock version of that. Like I loved that. Like I said, Heathen Reality are two of my favorite Bowie records. Mm-hmm. But when I heard Black Star, I was like, oh man! I was like, this Bowie. I was like, what the heck?
It's like seriously amazing. The song Black Star. I mean, so good. And the accompanying video with the dead astronaut, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's saying he's not the old '70s Bowie anymore." And it's just like
putting that like in a way, some like still trying to put that image of himself to death or something. Like that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, like that's as bad as that song was to me. And I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, okay, this is two records a year from Bowie. Dude's gonna probably show up or something these days. Probably really good health. He's probably getting his heart's probably doing better. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, we're getting records. Like he's clearly on another writing streak. He's picking back up. And circling back to the reason why we're talking about this. I mean, clearly this album is a love letter to his fans, and for a very sad reason. And man, listening to that last single, that last shot of him that we'll ever see crawling into that closet, closing that door like a coffin.
I know.
It's just that brings tears to my eyes. It really does. And that one is really like hard to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely is now. Like when I first saw it, it was just like, whoa, this is very creepy, you know.
Yeah.
But what, like, no, watching it now, and obviously he's gone, and uh, it's yeah, man, it's what do you say? I mean, it probably truly the last real great artist. I mean, we could get on a whole other topic about modern music and music not ever going to be able to be as good as it used to be in some way. Um, but what do you do when it's all been done? You know what I mean? Like he invented almost everything you hear in some in some form. You know what I mean? It's
It
like him,
really.
it's
That's
like him.
why
It's
we're
like
talking
him.
about this,
It's
right?
like him and the Ramones. Ramones invented like all the, or the Beatles. So the Beatles gave us that whole structure. The Ramones sped it all up and made it aggressive, and we don't care. We're just going to play it raw. And David Bowie gave us all these other crazy connecting pieces, like the truly, like you know, uh, the new technology that came out. He embraced it and figured it out, which was the building block for anything to follow, because that's what happens when you create a genre. Like it's like the same thing with the Beatles. The Beatles embrace a certain formula that everybody followed in, and so they're literally all over the place. You could say that about Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin created that formula. Black Sabbath. There's certain bands or certain artists that came out that truly did create a formula. Michael Jackson, people that that everybody else is standing on those shoulders, and when they're all gone, I think it's the end of the world. It's like where else do you go? Everything is just being recycled, being recycled, being recycled. Like how
And it's always going to be.
People are like, we just needed the next Nirvana. And it's like there is no next Nirvana, man. That happens. They brought all that crazy stuff that was all seething in the underground, underneath all the pristine, perfect stuff, and brought that into the light and said, "Hey, we're here too. It's okay." And blah 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 blah, whatever they stood for. Yeah. And nobody's ever going to do that again because all that stuff has been exposed.
You're presented with an artistic pie, and it's a delicious pie. And as people take a piece of the pie away,
the pie leaves. There's no more pie.
There's no more pie.
Yeah,
we've eaten it all. And as people go on and do what we do, and as things change and diminish in certain that kind of error, I don't care what anyone says. Everybody says music is subjective, but there was a period of time where something very monumental happened, and now it doesn't. I really believe that. I believe there's always people doing interesting things. There's always a band that's good, whatever. But I mean, can you point to a person now and say, that's a David Bowie? Oh, that's an artist that could do that, have that much of an effect. I mean, even someone like Lady Gaga isn't going to have that kind of an effect. She may branch into Hollywood. She may films. She may do the costumes and the inventiveness, but she's always going to be a piece of that pie that was David Bowie.
Right.
And so as people
aren't as good, man. Let's be honest. I mean, the songs are way.
The songs aren't there. No.
It's way more. It's way more. It's actually she's musically way more mainstream than David Bowie was. Like everything with her is very mainstream. It's just her look is supposed to be freaky, right?
Right.
Like I think probably the closest thing is Bjork. Really, I mean,
yeah.
Only she didn't go as far,
though. Yeah,
and she didn't go as far. She didn't truly create characters. I mean, he created characters. He did what other people couldn't do. Other people shot themselves in the head with a shotgun. It's like they couldn't handle it. So he creates these things to find ways to express different things without having it to come directly from him. Right? There's a barrier. There's an artistic veil there, or different buckets that he's created to be able to dip into when he needed to.
Yeah.
And that's why when I say that Heathen and reality, they just come off so organic and so natural, is because I feel like that's probably the purest form of him. Just kind of within his context of rock god, just rocking out. Not that the artistic things are any more or less him. I don't believe that either. It's just that when you strip a lot of that away, if you don't work that muscle of being like, I want to really try and figure out industrial music or drum and bass, or I want to invent this genre by hitting these buttons on the keyboard. So I don't know, man. It's tough to talk about somebody like that that's done all that kind of stuff when as a fan you're kind of guessing the motives, or you're interpreting the motives your way as a fan, which is probably part of the point. But man, it's an interesting ride that we'll never have again. It's kind of like when Alan said, "There's no more songs. There's no more new songs."
Yeah,
it's all going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's it. We've done a good job talking about it.
I hope so.
Do you have any parting words on this subject you'd like to say?
I don't think so.
Are you gonna raise Ginny? Blah, blah, blah. Now I'm getting names mixed up. Are you gonna raise your daughter on David Bowie?
Probably some songs. David Bowie. He's dabbling on a lot of different things that are probably not necessarily age appropriate. But we were in the bathtub the other night playing Dance Magic Dance. So
yeah, there's always Labyrinth, man. Always Labyrinth.
Exactly.
Yeah. She'll like it.
Yeah,
She'll discover it like we did.
Sure. What's interesting is I actually read a very an interesting article. I forget who wrote it. I think it was somebody that I respected, in the Christian community, and posted it to Christianity Today, which is a magazine of some sort that I usually try not to read, but I saw it on Facebook, and I read it very quickly today, and it's just very interesting about maybe almost kind of when you're a Christian and you have when you look at music or anything, art or whatever made from the world or in the world, or however you want to define it, how does a Christian engage with that type of a thing, that Christian engagement in the arts. And it's just I would recommend people check that out if you're a Christian and you're interested in kind of a good outlook, because we don't know David's last months or days or whatever. We know that he struggled with the idea of God and with Christ and different things like that. I mean, that's even exhibited on Black Star lyrically. There's things going on there. So, that's part of the other part of the sadness, is that we don't know where this phenomenal, one-of-a-kind talent truly ended up on the eternal scheme of things, which is, essentially that's what really matters, and it'd be wonderful to walk through the pearly gates and see David Bowie there.
I agree.
But, it's well within the realm of possibility that he won't be there, so.
Yeah.
But
then I guess we'll find out.
We will find out. That judgment is not in our hands, thank God.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. Yeah, I'll get that linked to the show. I would like to.
See if you can find it. Yeah, it was interesting. It should be up there. Google David Bowie Christianity Today. I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah, man. Cool. Well, I think we got enough for the. We got plenty for the show, actually.